Hello, welcome to my channel. Good day to you. How are you all doing? So today we would be discussing on childhood trauma as a risk factor for addictions, and would look at it through the lens of a psychological entity called adverse childhood experience. An adverse childhood experience would include emotional, physical, sexual abuse, and of course significant household dysfunction in childhood. What this does is it disrupts the developing nervous system, the immune system, the metabolic system of the children. So they go into adulthood with significant impairment in their systems. But now we'll talk about the nervous system, specifically the mind. So there are 12, sometimes 10, sometimes 12 adverse childhood experience occurrence, but I will discuss 12, and we'll see how each of these experiences go to disrupt the developing mind and how it puts the individual at risk for addictions. The first one is physical abuse. What will count as physical abuse? I'll just give examples without bothering to define. Is beating the child until you have marks on the body, marks that are wounds, sores, cutting children with blade with the intention of trying to stop them from doing whatever it is they are doing. Punishment that far outweighs the offense. Those who count as physical abuse. Now, this is not a campaign not to train children. Even the Bible says, spare the rod and you spoil the child. But let the training be commensurate to the offense committed. And let the child understand why he is being punished. Because sometimes parents will use such punishment to offload their own anger, their own negative emotions, their own frustrations about life. So it's a transferred aggression onto the innocent child. So the child comes away from such discipline without knowing what he or she has done wrong, comes away with a confusion about their own parent or their caregiver or their teachers, because sometimes teachers are also the ones who abuse children. Come away from such experiences without even having understood what went wrong. They view such relationship in a different sense, a different light. They feel insecure, uncertain, afraid, and that also translates to how they view life over time if such cycles of physical abuse are persistent and repeated. So you have the child who is now an adult who views life with fear, with trepidation, with anxiety, with uncertainty about if some things will work or not, just waiting for the next shoe to drop. Their coping mechanism to stresses is grossly impaired. So little wonder when there are some repeated significant stress, they run to a substance for them to cope, or they run to a behavior to cope. The second way that adverse childhood experience does this is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse will count as sexual assault, molestation, incest, rape, and the likes. Every sexual abuse that happens in childhood. The child has an inherent sense of something was wrong with me, or something is wrong with me, which is why this could have happened. And many times the offender would also drill that into the victim's subconscious. Then there is shame associated with it. There is guilt associated with it, that why did I tolerate it? If I did not want it, why did I keep quiet? There's the shame of, how do I tell someone without them thinking I'm a bad girl or I'm the bad boy? And the young man thinks, if I was mature enough, I shouldn't have tolerated that bullshit. So that means I was a weakling. And a lot of complex emotions. So you then have the child who has become an adult, has an inherent sense of shame, of guilt, of inadequacy. They keep sabotaging all of their own best intentions. Many times, if you really dig deep, there is an underpinning of one form of abuse or the other. So it sets the person on the wrong course for life. And their ability to cope with life experiences is significantly altered. That also puts them at risk for addiction. Then the third one is psychological abuse. The words that some parents say to their children are nothing short of nasty. You are not good enough. Do you think you can achieve anything in life? See what your mates are doing. See what your brother are doing. Are you not the same, of the same children, the same parents? It is only you that is different, and on like that. And they can just go on with that tirade until the child's um, sense of worth again, because most addicts within their core, they feel grossly inadequate. They feel grossly like they are not good enough. So they use those ones just to cope with those grief in their heart. So the child who has been persistently psychologically abused by caregivers or by parents or by teachers has that impaired sense of identity, worth, and all of those things. So those emotions keep resurfacing in adulthood, and they would need something to cope with it. But many times they don't even know this is where the shoe is pinning them. This is where this thing originated from. Until you begin to undo such layers in counseling, that you now realize the layer of debris and mess that has been instilled into their mind right from childhood. Then the fourth one is physical neglect. You have parents, but they are not here. They are as good as they are not here. Either they spend all of their time at work, or is the partying mother, or the one who travels, and such children are left to just grow on their own. And even sometimes death would also count as, death of a parent would count as physical neglect, except such a child is lucky to be picked up and adopted. I don't mean formal adoption, but at least the rearing, the growing, and all of those things, someone steps into the line to do that duty. So physical neglect, death of a parent, and other forms of physical neglect will also count as such. Again, children are very egocentric. So a child who is a victim of neglect feels something was wrong with me. That's why they did not want me. If I was okay, they would want me. And the egocentric child also thinks my parents separated because something was wrong with me. So everything is about them. Everything is about them. Now this narrative, unfortunately, nobody sits them down, help them rewrite it. And they go into life with such narrative and translate it into every other interaction they have. Then psychological neglect. The parents can be there, but is not there. What do I mean? A parent who is consumed with work, he comes home every night, but is as good as is not there. The children cannot have anything to tell him or her, and it's like, no, I'm busy, come back. And that comeback never comes. They bring work to the house, or a parent who also has mental challenges, maybe a mother who is depressed, who is anxious, who is even trying to cope with her own psyche, trying to cope with their own emotion. As such, you cannot even provide any emotional base for the children. So parents are supposed to be the mirror to reflect emotions for the children in the early developmental phase. When such mirror is grossly absent or badly broken, they go into life with impaired sense of psychological development. So psychological neglect is a big risk factor for addiction in adulthood. Then witnessing domestic abuse, being the one to see their father beats their mother black and blue, and standing there helplessly. Then, in fact, it's often advised that if husband and wife will argue, do it behind closed doors. Don't let your children hear it. You don't know the trauma you end up instilling in them. You don't know the negative emotions you end up drilling into their little innocent minds. So physical and domestic violence is one risk factor. You know, parents who fight and break things, who fight and break heads and the likes. A child persistently, repeatedly or experiencing that and grows up with that mindset becomes a child who either has anger issues, also has a violent temper, and many times may need something to cope, and so on and so forth. Then having a close family member who misuse drugs or alcohol. This could be an adult child of an alcoholic parent, alcoholic father or mother. Could be one of the siblings, a close family member, an older sibling abusing drugs. The negative drama associated with substance and alcohol abuse is enough for that innocent child. Then having a father or an older sibling who abuses drugs also goes to tell that there is, without a shadow of doubt, some level of family dysfunction. Either the father will be emotionally neglectful or physically neglectful. Those are also the kind of fathers that will likely abuse their children. So that simple statement of an adult family member abusing alcohol or drugs would always have many of those other childhood adverse childhood experiences associated with that single occurrence. Then having a close family member with mental health problem, that is also a challenge. Most of the family's emotions would oftentimes be directed towards such person, leaving little or nothing for the growing child. Then having a close family member who served time in prison, this again goes to tell of family dysfunction. So having a family member who spends time in prison, there would be a lot of dysfunctional ongoings in the family, from physical abuse to psychological abuse to physical neglect. Even the shame that brings on the family affects the psyche of the growing child. Okay, then parental separation or divorce. Parental separation or divorce. Before the divorce happens, oftentimes the house is hot. The house is, you understand, emotionally volatile. A lot of fightings, a lot of arguments, a lot of silent treatment, a lot of malice, a lot of negativity, which children will pick up on, even if you don't tell them. They will see it and wonder, what is wrong with me? That daddy and mommy are not united. The same way, the egocentric child, when the marriage is fine, they also feel, oh, really, my parents must like me so much, which is why their marriage is good. So if he's working, it's about them. If he's working, it's not about them. It's also about them. So you have a child whose parents divorce. That child would also experience one form of physical neglect, because of course one parent is going. So, and of course all of the negative emotions that led up to that, all these ones combined puts an adult at increased risk of addictions and substance use disorders later in life, except they've been able or they've been helped, maybe through counseling, therapy, and all of those things, to cope with these traumas. And I've come to see many times when we need to really help an adult out of their addiction or any behavioral use disorder they may have, until you dig what is paining them, you have just done an exercise in self-control. And many times as you dig, as you unravel, you would uncover so many layers of pain that they never even knew what was writing and running the narrative in their life. So then, for whoever is watching this and is wondering, do I have an adverse childhood experience going? Do I have 10? Do I have 4? Do I have 5? Do I have 1? Statistics says most people have at least 1. 75% of the population have at least 1. So having 1 is not a big deal. But having 3 and above is worth processing. Now, what do I mean by processing? If you're someone who is inclined to journaling, journal all of the emotions you feel through it. You feel, let emotions flow, let your healing begin. If you're someone who doesn't, that is not your kind of thing, seek out a therapist, seek out a counselor, commit it to God in prayer if you are still pained by these experiences, and ask God to heal all of the painful areas in your life. Now, if you now have an addiction and realize that of these things that this lady has mentioned, I have like 6 of them, I have like 7 of them, and so on and so forth. The more you have, the higher the chance that you really need therapy to uncover it. If there's childhood sexual abuse, please, by all means, seek out therapy. If you have a history of childhood sexual abuse and you are now having addictions issue, please seek out a therapist. You may need help to uncover some layers and some depths of grief and negative emotions that has been sewed into your subconscious. So then, until next time, I wish you well. I wish you wholeness. Please stay sober. Thank you very much.